Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today for our Swartz Leadership Series talk. My name is Sonia Ford. I'm a program manager with the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship here at Carnegie Mellon University. We're so glad that you took the time out to join us this morning for this really exciting talk with our speaker. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Lee, who is going to introduce our speaker for today. And also he will moderate the chat. And we will not be doing Q&A, just in respect to Henry's time, because it is Shanghai time where he is, so it's a little late for him. So thank you again, Henry, for joining. And Ryan, I will turn it over.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. So I'm a current Swartz Fellow at the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship. I'm a CMU School of Computer Science Robotics Institute graduate student. And this is Dr. Hongwen Kang, and he is currently the Senior Director at the Tencent Platform and Content Group. Dr. Kang graduated from Carnegie Mellon University under the supervision of Professor Takeo Kanade and Professor Marshall Hebert. After graduation, Dr. Kang started his own company to apply the most advanced artificial intelligence technology to e-commerce and the content generation space. And after building the most advanced online video generation platform, Zen Video, Dr. Kang sold his company to Tencent in 2020. And now he's helping the company push forward its efforts in intelligent content creation. And he's in charge of multiple product lines as well as strategic investment and merger and acquisition. So I'm just gonna jump ahead to questions for Dr. Kang. How did you make that transition from a research PhD background into the startup space?
Okay, all right. Then, hi guys. So it's a long journey, I think. But at that time, I think it's I think the Silicon Valley like to use the word leap of faith. So I think at that time was a part of it was like a leap of faith, but truly, I think deeply, I was I've always wanted to do my own startup. Wanted to build really cool products that solves real world problem. That's like I think before our this session we have chatted a little bit. I think I came to CMU with two things in mind. Number one is I want to build really cool technology. I want to develop really advanced technology. Number two is I want to start up my own company and hopefully combine those two together. So when I first entered CMU, I had always sort of had this very fake, fuzzy idea in my mind towards my graduation. So I think I've been sort of exploring and preparing myself along the way. And before graduate, I started to kind of explore more and more concrete ideas, more and more concrete products in my mind before graduate. And I think I spent about a year or two before my graduation to explore some ideas, and then when it come to, I think when the time came, I sort of had a little bit idea of what I would like to work on, and went away, and luckily I got both of my advisors at that time to support myself. Takeo and Marshall both are very supportive, and Takeo even wrote a personal check to me as the first investment for the company. So that's helped a lot in starting up. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, they definitely had a lot of help, and you made a great transition to get into the startup space. Yeah. So speaking more about the early stages of your journey, I guess, what are some of the biggest challenges during that time?
There are a few. I think for the company side, it's really finding the right problem, right? Defining the right problem, defining what the company's mission, what's the company vision. I think it took a couple of iterations to kind of making that more and more clear. Because like it's kind of like typical entrepreneurship textbook, right? When you start, you need to think about your company's vision and think about the mission. And when I actually started, I think I saw that was just textbook. I saw that's not like you as a robotics student. I would rather write code. I would rather programs, right? So, but really, I think that's the challenging problem you really need to face and really think hard. And then was recruiting, hiring. I got a couple of other CMU grad students to join the company, and along the way also tried to persuade a few CMU alumni to join the company, and also some of my friends I have known previously when I was working to join the company. I think hiring and recruiting was really hard, and especially so we after we started, we moved to Silicon Valley, right? So hiring is especially challenging in Silicon Valley. It's there are so many startups, so many big companies. So hiring was very challenging. And I think, and also as a by the way, I think for an international student, I think there are some practical questions we need to think about, right? Like your visa status and all the others. I think I sort of figured out ways to have my visa kind of kept my visa status, and I even like sponsored myself for green card, and all the things like you just have to kind of figure out along the way. But those are like lots of questions or problems you need to solve. But luckily, I think they're all solvable, so it's not a big deal. I think when you guys look forward, you would see lots of problems, but they're all solvable. I think there are tons of practical problems you need to address, but I think luckily they're all solvable. From my personal experience, like they're all doable, I think. And looking back, I think when I still remember the day that I left Pittsburgh, when I left CMU. So one of our angel investors, Eric Cooper, right? He's also a CMU professor. I think he was one of the first internet startup. I think he started his own company like back in 1990-ish, and then sold his company around 2000 for I think like 2.6 billion US dollars. And you can find his name in Wikipedia. So I asked him, Eric, so I'm leaving Pittsburgh today. I'm moving to California. What's the last words of wisdom you would tell me. And so Eric said, just you're going to face lots of challenges, lots of problems. Just remember, keep moving forward. Yeah. So I still remember the same that the word he told me, and I think that's really helpful. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges involving correct change of mindset, hiring the right people, and I guess visa challenges for international students as well. But those are all definitely overcomable and obstacles you definitely overcame throughout your journey.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, how long did it actually take to build the AI product for your startup, and how did you set the goals to get the final product, like the end product, I guess?
It actually, I think there are, by the way, I read lots of books along the way. I read lots of books. I think there's a book called Lean Startup Machine, right? LSM. I always, my principle in developing a product, I think I was influenced a lot by the book Lean Startup, I, even for AI product, even for very heavily technology product, I still had this Lean Startup mindset when I think about it. So every product that I developed, I think the first version was very simple. I had this principle that you need to define your first version so that you can finish it with like 3 to 5 people's team in no more than a month. So that you can basically have something in the market in a month with no more than 5 people in your team. So that's how kind of a scope that I would define the product. So for the and for our startup, right, our product changed a lot. We kind of sought the very fancy way of saying it is like pivots, right? So we pivoted a lot. So we pivoted a lot in for our product, and so every time we sort of pivot and we try a new direction, we try develop product, and I think we kind of try to scope it down so that we can get it in the market in no more than a month. So like for the first version, the very first version that we developed it out of from CMU to the company was a very simple, very simple add-on, browser add-on for Pinterest. Actually, back then it was still in kind of from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 version, right? So we're still like before kind of like on the verge of the mobile internet, and we developed it in a way that's very simple, that we kind of had like hitchhiked on Pinterest to so that we don't have to develop like a very big system. So we just built a very simple plugin add-on for the browser, and it took us like, I think back then about a month. But of course we had some algorithm and system API already developed before, so that was something that make it simpler. So but the initial idea was very simple.
I see. So keep it simple, read more books, and make sure it's accomplishable within a short time frame, like a month, for the very first iterations. and during pivots. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Do you know what kind of advice would you give to someone who's currently in the early planning stages or initial stages of a AI related startup?
I don't know. I think it's those are just my perspective. I think the way I like to think about it is, regardless of the technology like you're building, I think finding the right problem to solve is the most important. That's the first thing. And number two is finding the right problem, and don't be like be fearless. I think be fearless. Don't be like overwhelmed by the scope, by the challenge of the problem itself. Yeah, sometimes the more challenging, the more overwhelming the problem is, the more valuable it is, right? So yeah, and if you just, I think it's kind of like go big, kind of idealism, right? So you really solve some big problem, I think.
I see. Yeah, always go big, and if the problem is tough, that means the problem is tough for other people as well. So bigger barrier to entry.
So especially for AI, for I think for CMU graduate student, I think we do have the capability to solve some really challenging and really big problem. And solving a big problem itself creates value.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how has the product that you developed changed after you built it in the US market and got acquired by a company in the Chinese market? Did any of the philosophies of your company or goals change based on the different demographics that the product was targeting?
I think the problem, the product didn't change. Yeah, I think it's not a very, because we're building a user facing product, right? So we are on the user facing perspective, I think it's not very different, and especially we're building it kind of, it's like a utility tool, right? So the product we're building, it's sort of kind of, we like to describe it in a way that it's a combination of Adobe plus AI plus cloud, right? So we're doing a creative tool that's powered by AI and cloud. So it's basically like Adobe Premiere tool, but it's powered by AI algorithms and the cloud technology, right? So it's a utility tool, and for that hopefully help improve the efficiency for the video editors in creating their videos, right? So in that sense, actually, I think it's not much different in the US versus in China, right? So because for Chinese video editors, they used Adobe Premiere before us, and for the US content creators they use Adobe Premiere as well, right? So on the utility tool side, it's actually very similar. It's I think it's not creating the biggest like difference. I think the difference, there are difference when you enter into the B2B space, right? So like for our product, we in addition to the user facing perspective, we are also business facing, right? So we also before joining Tencent, we also sell the product to big media institutes, right? Almost all the media like TV stations in China, they all use our product, right? So when you enter into the B2B sales space, I think that is quite different. Yeah, it's quite different because of all the budgeting system and the business system. They're all different. Like,
Nice.
yeah, so that part is quite different.
I see. I see. So it's less about the change in product, but more about how the logistics of making sales has changed when you're changed the line.
Yeah,
for sure.
The sales part are different.
Yeah. So while at CMU, I guess, what was the one most useful skill you learned at CMU while working on your startup during your last 2 years?
There are quite a few things. I think number one, I think it's to work with your advisor. The skills to work with your advisor. I think that's very important. Because really you kind of need to learn from them, and also at the same time you need to sort of quote manage them, right? Because I don't know, I think for most CMU professors are all very busy, and being able to kind of get their attention and get their time to help you and solve the problem together. I think that's the kind of number one skill you learn, because when you go to in the real world, you really need to it's like in the company, or when you start up to a startup, you need a lot of resource, and many times you need a lot of resource from some very influential people, like venture capitalists and some your business partner and all the stuff, and really you need to position your company and position yourself in a way that they want to help you. And I think that's really important. And also, of course, I think hone your skills, right? Like programming and doing research, all the stuff. I think that's the also number one thing you kind of get to practice a lot. I think that's the part I spent a lot of time when I was at CMU. So when I first entered CMU, I sort of had this idea that I would split my PhD years in 3 parts. First couple of years, I would do a MapReduce program, right? So in the first 2 years, I would map out, I would branch out, and I would try lots of stuff, and many of the things that would not work, but I would just really want to explore the space and see what could work and what might not work, and just try lots of things. And then the next couple of years, try to reduce, right? Try to converge to a few problems that are first interesting and big enough, and second is solvable, right? You in your in the kind of short term, it's actually tangible, right? So you can actually solve them, and then the last couple of years try to polish it and hopefully making it into a product or a company, right? So I think at this kind of idea of processes in the PhD. And so through the process, I think I got to try lots of things and got to develop lots of systems and failed a lot and learned a lot, kind of basically polish your skills along the way.
Nice.
Yeah, I think, yeah, then towards startup, I think I just read a lot, and I also joined a lot of events and tried to connect with other like-minded people, kind of get myself circled around by those community and people. Yeah, kind of prepare yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you gotta work well with your advisor and then have the right social circle and just kind of break down your long-term goals into more sizable chunks, and like going from like discovery to solving problems to having a polished issue to solve.
Yeah. Of course, I think those are when I talk about it, it feels like you had a very clear mind of all those time, but when I think about it, when I back then look forward, I don't think it was that clear, but I just had a few vague ideas, and then just kind of picking it up along the way.
I see. Yeah, this is an interesting question. So that the Tencent website lists TCG's goal as promoting the cross-platform and multimodal development of content for a diversified platform of experiences. And this is a very extremely multifaceted challenge with a very high number of moving parts. So what parts of your past experiences, academic and professional, prepared you for such a difficult role at Tencent, I guess?
I even didn't read it myself. So I think number one thing is through the process. I think the first thing that come to my mind is that I got the opportunity to work with so many different people. I think, that's the most important and beneficial in really get to see and learn a lot of different perspective and a lot of different things. And when I moved from China to the US, and from industry to academia, and then from academia to industry, from a big company to startup, it just, looking back, I think I got the opportunity to meet and work with so many different people with so many different backgrounds, and got to learn from each of them. I think that's the most beneficial in that perspective. Like you mentioned about with the Tencent kind of problem. Yeah, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah, just gotta learn about how to work with interdisciplinary and a lot of different types of people, different industries with different backgrounds. Yeah, for sure. What was the experience having your company acquired by like a very large conglomerate like Tencent? And then like, what were some of the difficult decisions you had to make in that process, and how did you make those decisions?
Well, the feeling itself, it's strangely not very strong, I think. Maybe it's also connected with the way that I my decision making process. I think it's similar to, when you think about it, almost all the big decisions that you make. I think it's interesting to look at how you go through that process, right? Like when, say, for example, at that time when I think about like from CMU to startup, right? It's a very big decision to make, and from US and then move to China, it was a very big decision to make, and then from startup to being acquired to join another big company. I think that's another big decision to make. So from the surface, these are all big decisions. But honestly, I think for me, those are, when I was making those decisions, I think there's no struggle. I think it doesn't feel like struggling or challenging. I think when in my decision making process, the number one thing is for me is to look for try to look for long term. So yeah, I like to try to make the problem, change the problem from a short-term decision to a long-term decision. Because when you look at short-term decision, you have so many variables that you need to balance, you need to consider, right? Say when you're moving from Pittsburgh to California, then you need to think about logistics, the house searching, and all those small problems, and then it's a mess. But when you look at it in a long-term scope, right? Then all those small decisions, small problems are gone. Then you just look at long-term benefit or long-term changes, right? When you move to California, you get to connect with the startup community, you get to connect with the VC community, and when you go from CMU to startup, right? You forego the short-term benefits of joining a company and getting immediate benefits of like salary and all the stuff, right? So, but you look for, when you look at it in a long-term perspective, you get to try big things. You are owning the things yourself, kind of defining your own problem, and also like you get to learn a lot, like through the process, because you're forced to grow, and you look at it in the like 5 to 10 years scope, right? When you look back, you would not regret that you like the speed you learn and how much you grow. You would actually most likely be more than you go through a like a day-to-day job at a big company. So talking about the acquisition, right? So for me, it's the way I look at it is I can build the product, continuing building the product on my own, and I may reach a certain level for the product on my own, like in terms of like say daily active users or scope of the level of the business, right? Metrics of the business. You can reach that by working on your own. But on the other side, when you join a big platform, you get the resource and the benefits to grow it much faster. So maybe I can, in terms of the product and the company, you reach the same level, but with like 1/4 or one third of the time. So that's the way that I think about it. So I like and of course there is also consideration of like you need to find a exit for your investors, right? And all those things. But I think to circle it back, I think really instead of making short-term decisions, but really think about it in the long term, and then things become simpler, right? Like it's like a signal processing, right? Like if the signal is very noisy, right? But you smooth it out with the long-term filter, right? The low pass filter, then it becomes easier, simpler, right? So it's the same thing. I think when talking about the acquisition, instead of thinking about short-term changes from a startup to big company, but when you think about a long-term mission, long-term vision, then it's actually a very simple decision.
I see. Yeah, those are definitely very big decisions, and sometimes you just need to take a step back and look at the longer time horizon to make those kinds of important decisions, rather than thinking about short term.
Yeah,
for sure. It's as they say, with great power comes great responsibility, and Tencent is one of these companies that has a large access to a huge number of users and potential customers. So how do you make sure that the new features and products that you release stay in alignment with Tencent's core values of incorporating social responsibility?
It's a very big question.
It is.
I'm learning on the job as well. So I think it does I kind of echo for that perspective myself after joining the company for a while. I think it does a small change we make, it does really creates a lot of impact, and that really is true. I think the point I want to make it's really true. When you're when talking about our own product, like when we're in a startup, we make changes every day. We sometimes cut corners here and there. But when you're actually on a big platform, it comes with both benefits and also roles, right? So and also responsibilities. So when you enjoy the benefit of the platform, you also need to carry your own responsibility. For ourselves, I think that's we sort of need to kind of change in a way that kind of be very aware of the changes we make, right? So instead of in the startup-ish process, we need to really slow down and think about the product in the long term. I think that's for sure. We need to be more cautious about every decision and changes we make. And that's one thing. And the second is, I think it comes down to the core value of the company. I think the reason that I joined, I think, coming back to the acquisition, I think one of the reasons that I decided to join Tencent also is that I think I agree with the company's core value. I think for Tencent as a big company like Tencent, it actually has very simple and very straightforward core value that I agree with. Like we always believe that we are doing the right thing, right? So we doing the right thing for the right problem, right? So that's the actually number one thing. We think we want to do things right, and we want to do things that are good, and we want to like create value and be beneficial for the whole society. I think that's the core value that I agree with, and that's also the thing that we sort of North Star for us to when we guide us when we are making decisions. I think it's big and small, right? It's big and small. It's big in a way that it's kind of guide you through the long-term mission, but it's small that it comes down to every decision, small decisions that you make. And I think for me, I kind of always had this like be fearful for the society and for the community. Yeah, and when we are making changes, we always I think we ask ourselves: is this the right decision? Is this the right thing? And that we can actually be very straightforward to ourselves. Yeah, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, definitely. Just being aware of the effects that your small changes might have on the broader scale of society. And it's great that you agree with their core values. That's really important when you're joining a company to make big impacts. For sure. Yeah. So what were some of the failures early on or like during your journey that really ultimately led to your current success at Tencent?
The failure, there are so many failures, I think. I would talk about a few. I think a few failures and a few big opportunities that we missed. I think the first big failure that we had was when we started, right? So we always want to build a consumer-facing product, right? So we initially we defined basically. I had this. I think, to be honest, I think it's a very foolish idea that we define success sort of equal to consumer-facing success. Basically, so when we started, we feel very excited to build a consumer-facing product. And I think around 6 months after we started, we had this opportunity. We saw a very interesting behavior in our user space, right? And we saw people sharing a lot of. To just give a little bit background. So the first prototype, remember the first prototype we built was a Pinterest plugin, right? So in the plugin we designed a growth hacking feature, so people can actually share their pictures very easily to Pinterest. And in that sharing, it would, if another person click that picture, it will link back to our website. And on the website, people can see the picture they shared together with a few products that are matched to that picture. So we designed a growth hacking feature in that. So when people share their picture to Pinterest, and when their users click it and link back to their webpage, if their friends, if their followers, right, purchased any of those products, the person who shared will get a cut, right? Yeah. And so we saw, like, as a user, like a growth hacking feature, we saw people use that a lot, especially some of the highly influential users. We had early on, we had a few users who had, like, I think like 5 million, 6 million followers on Pinterest, right? And they share crazy, right? So they share crazily, so at that time we wanted, because we wanted to build a consumer-facing product. So on that link back page, that landing page, we strongly guided their users to download our plugin, to install our plugin. Instead of like having them, making it easier for them to purchase the product, we actually very strongly guided them to download our plugin, right? So that's the, I think looking back, that's the one big first opportunity we missed, is that because it's very natural for people, if you can share the benefits, if you can share the revenue with your users, they will actually help you promote, right? They will actually use it naturally to spread, right? But instead of observing that and actually try to empower that, we were just blinded by our own defined success, right? So of guiding people to download our plugin, right? So, and I think that's the first, looking back, the first failure we faced, and because it's very painful, because a year later we found another product in the market did exactly the same thing we did, and that year they generated about I think $100 million US dollar GMV the first year. So it's so painful for us. It's like when you look back, right? That's the you got the opportunity to work on to consumer like in terms of commercial wise, right? To build something that can generate that commercial success, especially that's like when you just got started 6 months, right? Wow. So I think that's the first failure we had, and even though it's not a failure directly in the product, but it's a failure of recognizing a big opportunity, right? So, but that's something I think we and I learned a lot, is like don't just define success by yourself. I think really think very crystal clear what a success is, right? So at that time, we just very blindly defined the success equal to consumer success, right? So, but really success is empower your user and ready to make something your users want, your users like, right? Like at that time, our users want a product that they can share a picture and they can actually generate some passive income along the way. That's something like people want, and they're very they are passionate, and they are very excited to use. But we fail to recognize that, and we just focused on our own problem, our own defined success. So I think that's the number one. It's a failure in commercial product on the surface, but deeply, I think it's a failure to recognize what a product really is, right? What a product really need to be, right? You can build a very beautifully designed product that satisfy yourself, but nobody likes to use, right? Or you can build a product that like the interface could be very, very crappy, but people love and people feel crazy about. So I think, yeah, being really fearful and very humble about your user, I think that's the number one thing we learned, and that's the looking back, I think maybe contributed to our eventual small success.
I see. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, recognize opportunities and maybe define success, not only with the team, but also with outside customers, doing customer interviews and getting an understanding of the customer base and what they want.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely very important. Yeah, if say someone wants to enter this industry that you're currently in, what might be some pieces of advice that you would give them?
I think really, I think first is to be your own user. I think it's really important to understand the product and be a user for your own product. Yeah, and also find a lot of people to talk to. I think I benefited a lot from talking to like many of them are CMU alumni, and yeah, I along the way I got to actually I find a few of the CMU alumni that were doing startups, and I recruited them to be my advisors on my advisory board. I think by the time I talked a lot with Boris Softman. I don't know if you guys know him. He's the founder of Anki, and I think they got acquired by Google. And and also, like I mentioned, like Eric Cooper, right? And also some other CMU alumni in Silicon Valley who have built their own startup and either got acquired or they brought the product to a big commercial success. I think really talking to a lot of people, I think that definitely helps. Yeah, and specifically in our space, I think our space really, yeah, I think it's in terms of product developing, you need to be your own user, and that's, I think, along the way building the sense of product, it's very, very important. And in our space, I think it's changing and growing every day, because when we started, we were working on picture, right? And then we started to work on videos, and now I think this metaverse thing has been kind of changing everything now, and we're looking at very seriously metaverse and AR, VR, virtual content. So being nimble and and being flexible on what the problems are. I think it's important. But anyway, I think coming back to the technology side, I think we no matter the formats, the format changes a lot, but the technology, the core of the technology, it's still the same. I think coming back to the training and the exercise we did at CMU, I think it's very, very helpful. And while we were at CMU, I think really just finding lots of opportunity to practice and to iterate on your technology. I think that's important.
I see. Yeah, it's gotta have to be your own user and be open to expanding to new product spaces from your initial idea is very important for sure. Yeah, I guess this might be a last question since we are coming upon the hour. Where do you find your inspiration and creativity? Does it come from the books you've read, during your time as a CMU graduate student, the other people you've talked to, other inspiring people? So where do you think your biggest source of creativity and inspiration comes from?
I think it's from all of them. It's because I went through a little bit of anxious after the acquisition. I thought maybe this is the last idea I have. You know, when you got acquired, you thought maybe I would never have another idea. Maybe I ran out of idea. So I went through this this anxious period that I was worried that maybe I wouldn't come up with another idea. But eventually it proved wrong. I think after you meet with more people, talk with more people, and kept reading about what's new, what's changing in the space, and when you are working on your in the space, and when you are working on your problem, then naturally some ideas will emerge. And it would come from, you wouldn't know where it would come from, but eventually it will come. And I think even after being acquired, I think I already had a few ideas. I don't know if they're good or not, but it definitely solved my my anxiety of this running out of idea anxiety. I think it definitely helped. So really, I think basically it's a way of absorbing and finding information, right? By reading, by talking with people, by meeting with other people, it's getting input. It's really getting input of information from everywhere. And by absorbing and taking all those information, new ideas will come out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everything is a valuable resource. It depends on how you look at it and having the right mindset to basically make new ideas from what you learn from the environment. I guess we are coming upon the hour, so maybe Sai close off now. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciated you answering all those questions with your time. It's
very, very, very nice to talk to you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, Henry, thank you so much for spending time this evening. I know it's late for you. We really appreciate you coming back to CMU and sharing your really awesome story about Tencent and how you got started. And if anybody missed the webinar, we will have it up on the Swartz Center's webpage, on our YouTube page as well. And we can, hopefully people will view it there. So thank you again, Ryan, for moderating the chat today. And have a good day, everybody. And thank you again for joining.